15-minute cities. On paper, they sound perfect. Everything you need: work, school, shops, parks, just a short walk or bike ride from your home. Cleaner air, less traffic, stronger communities. Who wouldn't want that? But here's the thing. When you look closer at the proposed laws and the technology behind them, you start to see a different picture. A picture that includes movement restrictions, mass surveillance, and a level of control over daily life we've never seen in modern democratic societies. To some, these warnings sound like paranoia. To others, they're a necessary reality check. Because history has shown us again and again, from wartime rationing to pandemic lockdowns, that temporary measures can quickly become permanent, and tools designed for convenience can be repurposed for control. So today, we are breaking down the top 15 most alarming issues hidden beneath the surface of the 15-minute city laws. Not because the concept itself is inherently bad, but because every system can be misused, and it's our job as citizens to ask the hard questions before the changes are made. From what I have gathered for you, I urge you to join me and say a big no to, for now, the proposed conditional living. Here it is, part 1. I break it down in 3 series. I'm sure after you finish first one, you are going to subscribe to the channel, so you don't miss out on the second and third. 15-minute cities. They sound like urban paradise. Cleaner air, less traffic, stronger communities. But peel back the glossy marketing, and you'll find questions no one in power seems eager to answer. In this first part of our series, we are counting down from issue 15 to 11, the concerns that sound small at first, but could have massive consequences for personal freedom, privacy, and daily life. This isn't fearmongering, it's fact-checking the fine print. And the more you see what's behind the curtain, the more you'll realize, the biggest danger isn't the idea of a 15-minute city, it's how those laws could be used once they're in place. Let's begin with issue 15, and trust me, the further down this list we go, the more unsettling it gets. Number 15. The travel trap. Let's start with one of the most immediate fears people have about 15-minute cities: restrictions on movement. The concept is simple. You live in an area where everything you need is within 15 minutes. Sounds efficient. But here's where the problem begins. In order to enforce that, some city planners are proposing measures to discourage, or even limit, travel beyond your designated zone. Another term I can use here: it is a case system in which all members of the society are totally dependent on the system. Now, let's get specific. Imagine your city is divided into 6 zones. The plan says you can drive outside your own zone only a set number of times per month. Surveillance cameras track your license plate as you pass certain intersections. If you go over your limit, you get fined, automatically. No conversation, no debate, just a penalty in your inbox. This isn't a wild theory. In Oxford, UK, there's already a proposed traffic filter system that would track how often drivers move between certain areas. They say it's to reduce congestion, emissions, and generally they will put forward arguments pertaining to climate issues. But the infrastructure, the cameras, the tracking systems, the software, would be capable of doing much more than just managing traffic. These are concepts of censorship and control. Here's the risk: once the framework exists, it can be repurposed. At first, it's to save the planet. Later, it is what it is: the total control of protests, to contain certain groups during emergencies, or to limit the movement of anyone deemed non-compliant, just to name a few. This is a forced obedience which eliminates any right we think we have. People defending the idea will argue, it's voluntary. It's just to make life more localized. But as history has proven to us all, it's full of temporary measures that never got rolled back. Remember travel passports during the pandemic, ID checkpoints. Once the system is in place, it tends to stick around and not for our benefit. You can see it happening around you, and it has been apparent especially since 2019. So the big question here is, if your local government had the ability to decide when and where you can travel, could you trust every future leader to use it honestly and justly? Number 14, eyes everywhere. Every smart city needs data, and lots of it. That's the pitch for installing more surveillance technology under 15-minute city plans. Cameras to monitor traffic. Sensors to measure footfall. GPS systems to track transport efficiency. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The same infrastructure that can measure traffic patterns can also measure you. In London, for example, the ultra-low emission zone, ULEZ, cameras track license plates to charge drivers. It's not hard to imagine a similar system being used to log every time you leave your assigned zone. Combine that with facial recognition technology, already in use in parts of China, the UK, Australia, Canada, and the US, and you're not just talking about traffic management, you're talking about the capability for a full, real-time record of everyone's movements. Hey, they're so advanced that they can identify how you move, no face needed. Think about the implications. Your daily routine, where you shop, which friends you visit, how often you go to the gym, could be collected in vast databases. Officially, it's for urban planning or public safety. But what happens when that data is hacked, or sold, or quietly handed over to private corporations? How can you seriously trust your corrupt governments, from the police and the judicial system, from politicians to the rogue government systematic machines? The other concern is the chilling effect on freedom. Knowing that every step you take could be monitored, this changes human behavior. People become less likely to speak out, protest, or even meet in large groups. It's what sociologists call the panopticon effect, where you act differently because you might be watched. Proponents will say, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. But privacy isn't about hiding wrongdoing, it's about protecting freedom from potential abuse. Because today's benevolent city planner might be tomorrow's authoritarian policymaker. Surveillance infrastructure is like toothpaste. Once it's out of the tube, you can't put it back. And in a 15-minute city, those surveillance cameras will be everywhere. Number 13, digital gatekeeping. Now let's talk about something that sounds like science fiction, but quietly, it's already emerging: digital gatekeeping. In some proposed 15-minute city plans, travel between zones could be linked to a digital ID system. Think of it like a passport, but for your own city. You'd scan your ID when using certain transport routes or public facilities. Your movements would be logged, and in some models, you'd have a limited number of credits, which may be linked to your carbon credit scheme, each month in order to leave your designated area. I am sure by now you are already witnessing a force behind the push to register all your data online. From banks to government, they want your personal info in digital forms such as medical records, IDs, banking, and more. If this sounds far-fetched, look at China's social credit system, where travel, loan approvals, and even access to certain jobs can be influenced by your score. Or look closer to home. In parts of Europe or Australia and New Zealand, digital vaccine passports were used during COVID-19 to control entry to restaurants, events, shops, and even border crossings. The infrastructure already exists. You know there is evidence in plain sight to indicate that any measures that have been put in place will never be removed. Now picture this in your city. You want to visit a friend across town. Your app says you've hit your monthly limit. Do you pay a fee? Do you request special permission? Do you go regardless? Or do you just stay home? And here's where it gets even trickier. Digital gatekeeping can be programmed to respond to behavior. Got unpaid parking fines? Maybe your travel credits are reduced. Posted something critical about the local government online? Your access could be temporarily suspended. Even if these sound like extreme hypotheticals, the potential is there, because the technology would make it possible. Defenders will argue, It's for efficiency. It's for sustainability. But efficiency is not always the same as freedom. And sustainability should never come at the cost of basic human rights. The danger isn't just what's in the law today, it's what could be added tomorrow, quietly and without public debate. Once you normalize requiring digital permission to travel, you've changed the relationship between citizens and their government forever. Number 12. The death of small business freedom. One of the big selling points of a 15-minute city is that it's good for local businesses. And at first glance, that makes sense. If everyone's shopping, eating, and working close to home, nearby shops get more foot traffic. But here's the catch. If movement between zones is restricted or discouraged, businesses outside your designated zone can lose access to customers, and customers lose access to them. That means the city is artificially deciding which businesses thrive and which ones wither. Let's make this real. Imagine you run a small family-owned bakery in Zone B, but most of your loyal customers live in Zone C. Under a travel limiting system, those customers may be fined or restricted from visiting you regularly. They'll end up buying from a chain bakery in their own zone, not because they prefer it, but because of the rules. Over time, this could create monopolies within zones. Big corporations with multiple locations could simply set up in every area and crush the smaller independent stores that can't afford to duplicate themselves. This is already practical. Example: Woolworths, Coles, Walmart, West Farmers, and so on. We've seen versions of this before, during the COVID-19 lockdowns, when small businesses closed in record numbers while big box retailers and e-commerce giants like Amazon saw their profits skyrocket. Movement restrictions didn't affect everyone equally, they favored the already powerful. Proponents will argue that 15-minute cities could lower rents and help small shops by increasing local demand. And in some scenarios, that might happen. But the risk is that it becomes a closed-loop economy where residents' choices are shaped more by enforced geography than by preference or quality. In the long run, the death of small business freedom isn't just about losing your favorite corner cafe. It's about losing the diversity, competition, and innovation that come from a truly open marketplace. Here's the case: you will find in every mall you go to it has the same principal shareholder, example Vanguard or BlackRock. These two have their hands in every sector you can think of, such as retail to real estate, technologies, education, entertainment, right through to our banking. Speaking of banking, did you know they are the two main shareholders of our 4 big banks of Australia? Number 11. Property price chaos. Urban planners talk about desirable zones as the core of a 15-minute city. The idea is that by clustering essential services and amenities in each zone, you improve quality of life. But here's what happens in the real world. Once an area is labeled desirable, property prices in that zone begin to skyrocket. Think about how this works. If you live in a zone with the best schools, top healthcare facilities, and thriving shops, your property becomes more valuable overnight. Meanwhile, homes just outside the zone, without those services, can stagnate or drop in value. This divides the society into subclasses, the elite vs working class, etc. We've already seen this play out in cities with highly ranked school districts or limited access transit hubs. People will pay a premium to live where life is more convenient. And when you lock those advantages into rigid zones, you risk creating real estate bubbles in some areas and neglect in others. But this does not come as a surprise, because the government wants people to live in caged system, just like chickens. Total dependency on government, which makes control and punishment much easier. This is what's known as an open-wall prison, like the Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky stated. The most effective form of control is when individuals are unaware they are being confined, either physically or mentally. This doesn't just affect homeowners, it can price renters out entirely. Landlords in high-demand zones will raise rents, forcing lower-income residents to move to less serviced, less connected parts of the city. Over time, you could see a concentration of wealth in certain zones, while other areas decline into neglect. Advocates of 15-minute cities say they can design the system to keep housing affordable. But unless they also control the real estate market, which has proven incredibly difficult worldwide, these zones will inevitably shape where wealth is concentrated. On the other hand though, they have managed to control the real estate market. Just look how high the house prices currently are. They are designed to exclude large young demographics from owning a home. The result? A city divided not just by geography, but by economics. People don't just live in different areas, they live in entirely different realities depending on which side of the zone they are on. So those were issues 15 to 11, concerns that may seem small in isolation, but together form the foundation for something much bigger. And here's the thing, we've only scratched the surface. Because the next set of issues, from 10 to 6, dig into the mechanics of control, the infrastructure that could quietly reshape not just our cities, but our rights. If you thought these first 5 points were unsettling, what comes next will make you see the 15-minute city in an entirely new light. Join me in part 2, where the picture starts to get clearer and a lot more uncomfortable.